Good morning. My name is Marco Palma, and I'm a professor in the Agricultural Economics Department. Today, we want to present to you some very exciting results about real Texas honey. Interested in looking at how can producers increase the economic value of honey through consumer willingness to pay and marketing study. This has been joint work with many people from Texas A&M, from other universities, and also from the Texas Beekeepers Association. So we're very thankful for the support provided through all these organizations, and also from the Texas Department of Agriculture and other funding sources. Lawrence Huang is going to be doing the first part of the presentation. And if you have any questions, we're going to include some of our contact information at the end. And if anybody wants to ask questions, there is a box for questions that you can use. And then I'll make sure that we have some time at the end to answer those questions. So with that, Lawrence, please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Lawrence Huang. So thank you for having us to share our economic experimental result, experimental study today. So I'm going to talk about our presentation. The title is Real Texas Honey, Increasing the Economic Value of Texas Honey Through Consumer Willingness to Pay and Marketing Studies. So in the presentation, we are going to briefly talk about the honey background nowadays, and we will explain how do we design our experiment to reveal people's willingness to pay for honey products, especially Texas honey products. And we will briefly talk about the statistical model we used to analyze our experimental data. And then we will share some our findings. And at the end of the presentation, we will provide some marketing implication from our experimental results. So let's get started. So speaking of honey, according to Bloomberg Businessweek, they reported that the honey product is the largest food fraud in the U.S. history in 2013. And 5 years later, the Economist journal published another article that is about honey fraud. And in that article, they mentioned about the honey product in the marketplace. Some of them have been diluted with cheaper sweeteners. So it is certainly a challenge for consumers to distinguish the quality of honey in the marketplace. So how do we to deal with this honey fraud issue? So the potential solution is to establish one trustful certification food label. And previous study also have shown that consumers have higher willingness to pay for food product with a certification food label. And in our project, we collaborate with the Department of Entomology. So they conduct a chemical analysis for honey product, and they test whether honey product contains the local Texas pollen. And if they pass the chemical analysis, they will have this Texas seal. So in our study, one of the objectives is to see how people react to this Texas seal. And another potential solution to address the honey fraud issue is digital word of mouth. So nowadays, more and more people they use online information to help them to make their decision. And previous study also have shown that the online information can affect retailers and consumers' behaviors. So in our study, in our experiment, we also consider the product reviews as our product attribute. So to summarize our research purpose, we can see we concern about how people react to real Texas honey seal and product reviews, how those factors affect their willingness to pay for honey products. And we also consider adulteration honey information. When people perceive those adulteration honey information, how will they react their willingness to pay for honey products? So to summarize those components, we have following three research questions. The first one is, does adulterated honey information affect people's willingness to pay for honey products? And the following one is, do product review affect people's willingness to pay for honey products? And we're also curious about, does the real Texas honey seal increase willingness to pay for Texas honey? So to answer those research questions, we have the following experimental design. In our experiment, it consists of three parts. The first part is screen choice experiment, which is hypothetical experiment. And the second part is shelf experiment, which will mimic the real shopping scenario in grocery stores. And this part is non-hypothetical experiment. That means people really spend their money in this section, and I'm going to talk about this in detail later. And the third part is post-experiment survey. And we have one control group and one treatment group. In the treatment group, subjects were asked to read one adulteration honey information article. And subject in control group, they didn't read such article. And there are two types of seal position in our shelf experiment, which I'll show you later. And so in total, we have 2x2 experimental design. And we recruit general population as our subject. And they will, if they show up and they finish our experiment, they will earn $30 participation fee at the end of the experiment. So this is an illustration of the treatment article. So we cited this article from a Netflix documentary, Rotten. And in this article, the main idea of this article is about the domestic honey demand is much higher than the domestic honey production in America. And there is a mismatch between these two components. And the mismatch can be explained by dilution of honey. So we show this article in the treatment group, and subject in the control group, they didn't read this article. And here is the illustration of screen choice experiment. So subject in this section, they were asked to answer 12 choice tasks. And this is one of the choice tasks. And in each choice task, there are three options from option A and B and C. And they need to pick one of the options out of these three options. And here, I would like to highlight some product attribute. For example, like a region attribute. So in this attribute, we have US attribute, Texas attribute, and import attribute. Import a region. And whenever option have Texas a region, we automatically show the Texas seal beside the container, as you can see in option B. And another one I would like to highlight here is review attribute. So in this attribute, we have three levels: positive review and negative review and no reviews. So that means some choice task, subject will see positive review, and some of them will see negative review, and some of them will see nothing for review attribute. So for positive review and negative review, we collected from Amazon. So those are real consumer reviews in the marketplace. And here is an illustration of our second part of experiment, which is shelf experiment. So we displayed 8 honey products on the shelf, and 4 of them are Texas honey, which are highlighted in red boxes. And for those honey highlighted in solid red boxes are Texas honey with Texas seal. So you can see there is the small circle, the gray circle. Those are the Texas seal which we have shown at the beginning of the slide. So we have 2 types of seal position, and we can compare these 2 seal position to see how people react to the Texas seal. And in this section, we ask them to wear the eye tracking glasses, so that we can capture their eye movement throughout their decision making process, and we ask them to state their willingness to pay for each honey product. So at the end of this section, we will use lottery to pick 1 binding honey product, and we compare their willingness to pay with the binding product's market price. If their willingness to pay is lower than the market price, they will earn $30 cash. And if their willingness to pay is larger and equal to the market price, they will earn the binding honey product plus cash. So sum of them will be the total value will be $30. So here is the illustration how we record the subject's eye movement. So you can see the yellow line is their eye movement trajectory, and the small yellow circle is their gazing behavior. So you can see now they are looking at the label on the container, and those gazing points we recorded in our eye tracking data. So here is our statistical model, and I'm not going to talk this model in the detail. So if you are interested in our estimation method, so you are free to reach out to us. We will have our contact information at the end of the slide. And here is a sample characteristic. We recruit our subject from local newspaper and bulk email, and we recruit 177 subjects in total. And there are 4 invalid eye tracking subjects, which means their eye movement failed to calibrate with our eye tracking devices. So in total, we have 173 valid subjects. So here we have estimation result for our screen choice experiment. So here we show the estimated willingness to pay for each honey attribute. So I would like to highlight here for example, people in treatment group, they tend to have higher willingness to pay for Texas attribute and natural attribute and pure attribute compared to people in control group where people didn't read adulteration honey information. And another one I would like to highlight here is the effect of reviews. So at the bottom of this table, there are positive and negative. That means the effect of positive review and the effect of negative review. So as we expected, the positive review have positive effect on willingness to pay, and negative review have negative effect on willing to pay. And what I want to emphasize here is the effect size. So if we visualize this review effect, we can get this bar chart. So the dark red bar chart represents the negative review, and the light bar chart, the light red color bar chart represents the positive review. And we can see the decreasing effect from negative review is much larger than the increasing effect from positive review. So this implies one behavioral concept they call loss aversion. That means people react to negative information much more than they react to positive information. So people may be curious about what kind of underlying reason to cause this variation for negative review. So next, we decompose the effect of negative review by classifying different types of subjects. So in our survey question, we asked them, how do you agree that the current honey label can indicate the eco-friendly honey attribute in the marketplace? That means like natural attribute or organic attribute for honey product. So if they disagree with this statement, we define them as mislabeling conscious subject, and the counterpart will be non-mislabeling conscious subject. So the dark red color represent mislabeling conscious subject, and light red color represent the non-mislabeling conscious subject. So firstly, let's look at the control group at the left panel of the bar chart. So we can see in the control group, mislabeling conscious people have stronger negative effect to negative review compared to non-mislabeling conscious people. So that means for those people who are mislabeling conscious, they already had less trust for honey product. So whenever they receive negative information for the honey product, they react stronger than those people who are not mislabeling conscious. And another finding from this bar chart is if we compare the different two groups between control and treatment groups, we only focused on non-mislabeling conscious people. After they perceive those adulteration honey information, they tend to have stronger negative effect on willingness to pay compared to those people who didn't perceive the adulteration honey information. So that implies adulteration honey information can affect people's willingness to can affect people's reaction to negative review. And one of our objectives is to see how the Texas seal works in our study. So we have eye tracking data in our experiment. So we calculate the median time they look at the Texas seal. So for those people who look at Texas seal more than median time, we define them as Texas seal observed subject, and the counterpart will be non-seal observed subject. So seal observed subject is in orange color, and non-seal observed subject is in green color. So the first finding here, we can see the estimation of willingness to pay for Texas honey. There is insignificant difference between seal observed and non-seal observed. And however, we also find that willingness to pay for Texas honey is much larger than the willingness to pay for U.S. honey here. So far, we already know that people have higher willingness to pay for Texas honey than U.S. honey. And the next question we will be curious about is how about for those people who have higher willingness to pay for Texas honey and for those people who have lower willingness to pay for Texas honey, how their behaviors different between these two groups. So the first thing we look at their purchase locations. And from this bar chart, we can see most of the people, they mainly purchase their honey in the grocery stores. And also we can see high willingness to pay consumers. They also have a higher tendency to purchase their honey in local farms and flea market. And if we see their purchase frequency, and we can see the few high willingness to pay consumers, they tend to purchase their honey bi-weekly. But most of the people, they tend to have less frequent purchase compared to low willingness to pay consumers. So that means high willingness to pay consumer, they tend to purchase their honey less frequent, but once they want to purchase or they need to purchase honey, they will purchase a good one. And compared to their importance of product attributes. So one thing I would like to highlight here is for the nutrition attribute and natural attribute, high willingness to pay consumers tend to concern more about nutrition attribute and natural attribute compared to low willingness to pay consumers. So due to the time limitation, I'm going to sum up our conclusion. So for the first research question we were asking at the beginning of the slide is, does adulteration honey information affect people's willingness to pay for honey products? And the answer is yes, but the difference between treatment group and control group is not significant different. However, if we classify people in different groups like non-mislabeling conscious and mislabeling conscious, we can find that non-mislabeling conscious subjects have a stronger negative effect after they perceive the adulteration honey information compared to those people who didn't perceive those information. And the second question is, do product review affect people's willingness to pay for honey products? And the answer is yes, and especially for the negative reviews, the impact is much larger than the positive review. And we also found out that mislabeling conscious subjects have a stronger negative effect on willingness to pay compared to non-mislabeling conscious subjects. So, and due to the time limitation, I'm going to provide some marketing implication from our results. So the first marketing implication is about review product. So honey sellers probably also want to manage their online feedback carefully, because previous study and this study also have shown that the online information can affect people's willingness to pay in a not trivial way. And the second marketing implication is, if honey sellers want to reach out to those high willingness to pay consumers, they probably also want to pay more resources in local farms and flea markets as well. But the majority consumers will be in supermarket and grocery stores. So honey reseller probably want to develop some bundling strategy with local supermarket to stimulate their demand for their own product. And in the end, if honey sellers want to reach to high willingness to pay consumers, they also need to emphasize the nutrition attribute and natural honey attribute, so that high willingness to pay consumer will pay more attention for those products. So here are our presentation, and we here are some our contact information. So if you have any question or you are interested in our future result, you are free to reach out to us by our contact information. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lawrence. I think it is interesting to see that people didn't really react that much to the Texas seal, perhaps because the information about the production origin of the honey was already in the package, and so once people saw that the Texas origin was already in the market, maybe that doesn't really make a big difference in terms of adding the seal. But we did observe a big increase in willingness to pay for localized honey in terms of the state of Texas, once the people know that this is the case compared to other honey coming from other domestic sources or imported. I have a quick question here, and the question is, what is the proportion of people who are mislabeling conscious versus non-mislabeling conscious? That might give us an idea of, well, who is really worried about this potential adulteration issue in the real market.
So from our data set, there are about 30% of people, they are mislabeling conscious, and 70% of people are not mislabeling conscious.
And is this mislabeling conscious in terms of food products in general, or is it specific to honey products?
Specifically to the honey products.
Okay, so I think this is actually quite interesting. And now in the second part of the presentation, let me introduce Dr. Delaney. And the second part of the presentation is about, well, once we have all of this information, how can producers use this information to make better marketing strategies and to try to better market their products? And so with this, Dr. Delaney, it's really a pleasure to welcome you to the webinar. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. I know some people in the audience are also going to be excited to what you have to say. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Dr. Marco and Lawrence. That was really, really interesting. Can everyone see my screen?
Maybe yes, we can.
Okay, great. So basically, I am working on the final phase of this research and taking all the hard work that Dr. Palma and Lawrence have done and trying to work with honey producers directly to develop marketing strategies to increase their economic livelihood associated with their honey production. And so to get started, I'm going to kind of walk through some of the information that Dr. Palma and Lawrence presented, and then really go into specific ways to develop a marketing plan. And one of the first things is understanding the demographics of your consumers and what they're willing to pay for a product. And as we saw, taste was important to participants, economics, environmentally friendly, life quality attributes. The economics also was important, environmentally friendly, we see again, and also the societal impact. So we have some very conscientious consumers that have been part of the research, experimental economic research portion of this work, as well as attitude characteristics. people who participated, what's important to them is a sense of protecting the environment and the idea of sustainability. And all of this it's really so interesting to see that this is coming out from the data that was collected, just looking at, you know, consumers' behavior towards honey. Now, online attributes, and this was really interesting to me, that consumers spend time on, but really obvious. Reviews. Reviews are so important, and I'm sure all of us have done online shopping, and I go straight to the reviews. And so reviews, I think that's a really interesting way, especially if your vehicle for selling honey is through online ways or online mechanisms. That's a really important thing to think about, to go through your reviews and think about what people are saying. Also, the appearance, a container, the way that the honey looks, of course, is going to be something. If you're showing a murky product or one that looks dirty, that's going to affect the online consumer. And origin, which is something that's continually pops up when we talk about honey marketing and consumer behavior. Now, it was really interesting to think about the way that words or symbols increase the willingness to pay. And the Texas seal is something that I know that the Texas beekeepers are very interested in understanding how that seal affects consumers, and also kind of looking at other seals that are geared towards describing more of the sustainability and natural kind of characteristics of how the honey was produced and how it's affecting the environment. I have a few kind of random ones up here that weren't used in this research, but they kind of are associated with this idea of natural honey or pure honey, like certified naturally grown, or this label here, you know, pure honey, 100% natural, etc. So these all kind of are ways to gain trust from the consumer, and different ones are going to have a different impact on the consumer depending on the demographics of your consumer, where they live, how much they are involved in kind of their local community, if they are passionate about the environment, etc. So in terms of specifically now shifting gears and focusing on marketing plans and marketing tools, the biggest thing that you can do to change your strategy to really take advantage of consumer behavior to be able to drive your price up and that willingness to pay up is to research your market. You have to pick out the relevant data that will help you solve marketing problems that you may encounter. And so it's really kind of a fun time when you're starting to think about new ways to market your product, of kind of diving in and understanding the demographics of your area that you want to sell to. And this kind of demographic segmentation, understanding the segment of your market that you want to kind of showcase your product to, understanding the age that you're kind of marketing to, the socioeconomic status, the gender, it can be things like religion. It depends on the product itself that you're selling, but also family life cycle, the level of education. All of these things are going to be very important and elicit a different consumer behavior response. And so I always tell honey producers in my area, okay, where are you going to be selling it? And then, okay, so who are the people who are going to be coming into contact with that product, with your honey? And just trying to understand who those people are, because you should directly be kind of reflecting your marketing strategies based on the demographics of your consumers. Also, in terms of researching your market, I already talked about kind of identifying the market segmentation, and also differentiating your product. Now that you're understanding the segment of the market you want to kind of brand or, you know, market to, now you have to differentiate your product. People are looking for something that sticks out. They have lots of choices in the marketplace, and so you need to have this unique identity or brand for your product. Not only for it to catch their eye, that kind of eye tracking research was absolutely incredible. I was loving that. And I'm so glad you did a video kind of showcasing that. And really, that is the key. What about your product is going to make somebody's eye stop right there on that honey jar and have them pick it up and actually from all the other honey choices they have on the shelf. And what's really nice about this idea of researching your market, well, Dr. Marco Palma and Lawrence have done most of this work for you. They've identified a lot of important attributes and what people are looking for, and they're spending time on to actually pull that particular product from the market shelf or to click on it online. Here's another chart kind of showing the main basis of segmentation and how important it is when you're marketing to really understand your consumers. So where kind of understanding the geographic range that you want to reach with your product. So the customer location, the region, do you want to just focus, within 10 miles of the store or your farm market? Or do you want to reach a broader base? And, this is going to help you determine whether you want to go maybe online or in a bigger type of chain store. Understanding the demographic, okay? So we have age, gender, occupation, education level. All of these are going to kind of equip your consumer with different types of values that are going to make them choose or not choose your honey depending on what you have on your label. So educational information on your label about pollination, negative information, which was really highlighted in this research, maybe associated with your honey jar, like a little label saying, this is really pure honey. Look at all this fraudulent behavior that goes on in the honey market. So this is all kind of different tactics that you can use, as well as behavioral. And I love the rate of usage, kind of showing how people are buying honey, how often they're buying honey. And I'm glad I wasn't part of the study, because I would have been a big outlier, because I eat tons of honey. And I buy it, I probably go through almost a jar a week. So it's going to be different for different people, but it's really nice to have that behavioral data. So first off, as a producer, you can be sure that you're able to supply the demand of your customers so that you can develop loyalty from your customers. And then finally, the more psychological kind of attributes, where you're looking at different types of attitudes towards your consumers. All right, so marketing plans and marketing tools, again, kind of gathering information when developing the marketing plan. Now, this part isn't as fun, but you need to go through your financial reports. You need to kind of keep track of your sales, what you've been charging, kind of how many jars of which product is actually selling, and that's the first step in kind of starting to develop a marketing plan so you can track effectiveness if you are changing any marketing. And hopefully what we're hoping for is that producers who are a part of this project, and also producers who are going to be tuning in today at this webinar, will think of maybe new ways to market their honey. And if you start to look at your financial plans and reports from how you did it in the past, and now you develop new marketing tools, we can track the effectiveness of these new marketing tools. Some of the information you want to gather when developing a marketing plan is start simple. I, for one, am one of those people who gets very overwhelmed when we start talking about finances. So a good way to start is to make a list of each product that you are producing and that you're selling, and then put a little kind of hyphen of what is the target market that you're trying to reach with that product, and what is the price point that you're hoping to reach with that particular product. Now we can talk about candles, we can talk about lip balm. There's lots of different products that come from the hive. So it might not just be honey. Honey might be your primary product, but you also might have other products from the hive. This picture here on the slide shows pollen, candles, different salves, all sorts of different products, soap. Another thing to understand when developing your marketing plan is the marketplace. I can't stress enough understanding the demographics of your consumers, and also the trends in the market. Right now, and probably for the past 5 or 6 years, there's been this trend and this buzz about raw honey. And just having that word raw, you know, and actually consumers coming up and, is your honey raw, asking you these questions because they've heard these buzzwords and these trends. Also this idea of organic honey. And so these are really important things for you as a producer to be aware of as you're developing your marketing plan. And, you know, you have to be honest and truthful with your consumer. And so you want to make sure that your label is reflecting your feelings about your honey, but also can tap into those special things that that consumer's looking for in their honey. Also looking at competitors, looking at other types of displays, other types of labels, other jars, how they're actually distributing their honey, maybe even something as simple as kind of producing the honey, bottling it. Do they have a more efficient bottling system that allows for them to actually kind of produce and bottle their honey more cheaply? There's all sorts of different things that you can think about when you're kind of gathering this information for your marketing plan. Also, feedback and input from salespeople and customers. So I know that many people sell their honey at farm markets, and this is a great way to get feedback. And it's probably one of the easier ways. Online, also, you can get some feedback by having reviews. But in the farm market environment, people will come right up to you and be like, oh, I love your honey. And also you can get an idea of how much they love it by how often they come back and get more. Or if they come back and, oh, it's so good, I want to get some for my friends. And also, if you have a disgruntled customer and they frequent the farmer's market, I'm sure they will come and let you know that they had a problem with your honey as well. So farm markets is a really great way to get feedback. In a grocery store or market environment like that, it's a little bit more difficult. But I've seen a lot of ingenious ways that people can get feedback, from little cards, comment cards that are also, depending on the display area you have for your product. You also might be able to even put a contact information right on the label. Well, you have to have contact information right on the label legally. And so also people might email you that way and give you feedback. You also have to think about your market situation. Where are your products and services? What are your products and services? What are the things that you are going to be selling? Most people, this research has been geared towards selling honey, but typically beekeepers don't just sell honey, and also they can sell different types of honey. So in this picture here, we see honey sticks, which is honey, kind of plastic straws filled with different flavored honeys. Also, we see these jars with comb put into the liquid honey. We call this chunk honey. And so what are the products and services that you're hoping to sell? And then do they match what your consumers want? So you might love chunk honey, but maybe your consumers are kind of more skeptical about the fact that there's the comb in your honey, and maybe they want more liquid honey. So that's something that you're going to have to figure out. What do the people in your area or where you're selling your honey, what are they looking for in honey? And this is a little bit trickier, understanding the dollar size of your market, and this might take some time to really comprehend. If you've been selling at a local farmer's market for a long period of time, then you might have an idea of what that would be just from sales. And also, you can track things online to really get a sense of what the dollar size of your market is. And this is one that people, when I was doing research like this in Delaware, this was really important to a lot of the participants in Delaware, the honey producers, and understanding what their sales and distribution models were. And so the structure of kind of the sales team, how they were actually going to sell it, were they going to hire somebody, how are they going to distribute their product? And there's different challenges depending on what size of producer you are. If you are a smaller producer, then it might be just you and maybe your family members or friends who are going to be helping you sell these products, and maybe there's not going to be, you won't have to hire anybody. But if you are a larger producer, then you're going to have to think about kind of larger costs that are going to go towards employees to help you process the honey as well as bottle it, and then distribute it to the different areas that you're going to sell it. You also have to think about how you're going to kind of get the information out there. Is it through social media? Is it going to be online sales? Are you going to spend money to have a TV or radio ad? Or are you going to print flyers maybe at local health food stores or make a little card that the health food store can give out to customers, highlighting your honey? There's all sorts of different things that you need to think about when you're trying to sell your product. And also, what geographic area do you sell to? So this is something that maybe you want to expand your geographic area. Maybe you want to decrease your geographic area and focus more on quality of your product than actually like expanding the sales distribution of your product. And this is something that's going to be a personal decision, but you do need to think about what geographic area you want to sell to, because once you lock that down, then you can really look at the demographics of that area and start to understand more about the consumers who live in that particular area. Also, describe your consumers. You should have a good idea of who your consumers are. Hopefully they're not big bears, unless you live in a really rural area, and they might not be consumers but predators. But you want to be able to understand what your consumer behavior is. And this might also take some time, especially if you're just starting to sell honey in your area, to be able to know who your consumers are, what they're looking for, what their values are, so that you can kind of brand your honey in that way. And who are your competitors? These two little girls would be hard to compete against. They're adorable, and it looks like they have a lot of lovely products. But it's important for you to not only know who your competitors are, but also look at their labeling, look at the values that they are putting into their labeling, and how they're selling. Is there huge lines that are, every day when these people have their honey market up? And also look at their prices. Their pricing strategy is going to affect your pricing strategy. So it's very important to understand who your competitors are and what they are doing to attract consumers and also to get their product off their shelf. And also understanding how successful your sales have been in the past. And this is something that's overwhelming to me. It always has been, is tracking finances. But in order to see if your marketing approach is effective, you need to be able to keep track of your sales, and also the differences between your sales from past marketing, strategies to new ones that you may be implementing. And also you need to think about different kind of threats, but also opportunities. So what are the trends in the marketplace, and which of those pose a problem for you? I know that for many people in the US, the word organic on the honey poses a problem, because you have to get certified in order to get that organic word on there. It's really hard to get organically certified honey here in the United States. And so this can be a trend that will pose problems for certain growers and producers of honey in more urban areas or in areas that are more heavily cultivated with agricultural crops. Also, are your products able to sell in the current market as it exists? So, do you have a surplus of honey? Can you just not sell it? This should be a big wake-up call to you that you need to do something different. You need to market your honey differently. You're not understanding your consumers, or you're not directing your sales in the right way and distributing your product correctly. And so do you have barrels upon barrels of surplus honey because you can't sell it, that you need to keep in storage? Then that's something that we can work through together to figure out who are your consumers, what are the demographics of those consumers, and getting that honey into a more effective jar location in order to get it sold to consumers. Other threats and opportunities, like I said, there's some just on the flip side of this kind of organic idea is this raw local honey. These are trends in the marketplace right now that are going to favor honey producers, because honey is raw. And if you are a farmer's market seller or somebody who is a small producer, it's going to be local as well. So these are two big trends, not only in the honey marketplace for honey consumers, but also for consumers for vegetables, all sorts of different products. So we have a lot of wonderful kind of trends in the marketplace right now that are going to favor small local producers of honey. All right, so a couple other things, these are the last two in terms of threats and opportunities. Are competitors' trends working in your favor? Things for you to think about. Are the demographics working in your favor? Now, let's move on and kind of look at some marketing goals. You want to be able to grow and expand your business possibly. This might be one marketing goal for you. Another or a different one would be to increase the quality of your honey. Maybe putting more money into the jar and the design of the labeling. Maybe you want to add new products. Maybe you want to change the price. Maybe you want to increase your price. Maybe you want to design a new brand, become more efficient in your production. What I recommend is picking one of these goals and then working on that in your marketing plan to be able to kind of track the effectiveness of that change that you are aspiring to, that particular marketing goal. Some more goals that could be a possibility are to extend or relaunch existing products, enter new areas in terms of demographics or geographies. You could boost sales of a particular product. Say you really want this product to just go. So now you can start thinking about different marketing ideas to be able to focus that product. Also cross-sell or bundle products. You could actually sell kind of a honey lip balm combo or a candle lip balm combo. Also, trying to establish long-term contracts, maybe with a small health food store or at a smaller locally owned market, or even with a larger chain, so that you have this kind of continual long-term agreement for the selling of your product. Also, refining a product and enhancing manufacturing or delivery. I suggest that you make your objectives simple, concrete, countable, ambitious, because why not? But also achievable. So in terms of making a marketing plan, for your marketing goal, each marketing objective that you want to do should have a subset of goals that will basically tell you how you are going to achieve that particular goal or objective. So this is a detailed part of your plan. And yes, I suggest you write all of this down because this is going to be how you're going to achieve that particular marketing goal. So an example objective, I wanted to give one for you all to understand. Say you want to increase the territory for your sales of bottled honey. Well, this would be the kind of detailed plan that you would write. You would need to research possible retailers in a new region to determine if there's a good fit for your product. Also to need to reach out to retailers and establish relationships with buyers who might sell your product. Also may need to adjust your price to match demographics and also possibly adjust label design and information. Develop some promotional material for the product and see about getting it advertised in a shop mailer or something like that. Have an educational event about the honeybees and their role in pollination, and then feature your honey or your product as door prizes. So these would all be ideas that would get at that example objective to increase the territory for your sales of bottled honey. Now, in terms of budget, this is another thing that is the written portion of your marketing plan, where you need to kind of take account of different costs for selling your honey. So having your gross sales, these are not real numbers, these are just kind of made up, but also think about a budget for annual marketing efforts for your honey. If you're going to do sales letter mailing to prospects or flyers, clerical help for maybe helping you manage the books and helping you manage mailing lists, advertising in local business magazines. So these could be a number of different things, but you need to develop the budget for how much money is going to be coming in and also how much money is going to be going out towards your product. Now, in terms of tracking effectiveness, this is key. So once you have this marketing plan and these marketing tools developed, written down, and you have your finances written down, you have your budget written down. Now, after you've implemented these different marketing strategies, you can go back and see if and how you're meeting your objectives. And also, this allows you, if you're not meeting your objectives, to make adjustments. And so your marketing plans are not kind of stationary. They're dynamic. They're going to change as you get feedback from the market, which is really kind of cool. So by tracking effectiveness, you can measure your progress and if you're attaining kind of these goals, and also that they're working in your favor. And I'm going to just kind of leave this here for you guys to look at your leisure, but here's some numbers kind of showing how you could track your effectiveness. So you can actually see if your marketing effort is leading to an increase in sales, which is hopefully an increase in money to you for your product and your hard work. All right, so the final thing to put in your marketing plan is an executive summary, which is just a brief summary of your plan. So if you were to just look at your executive summary, you would kind of get a quick idea of what the current state of your market is and what changes you want to do. What are your objectives? What do you want to change? And then to kind of think about what are the things that you can do on the short term to achieve that goal. So 6 to 12 months. Maybe it's just kind of contacting local the farmer's market, place where you have to register to get a table. Maybe the long term would be something where you have a certain number of different venues laid out that you want to have made contact with. So these are really important things to put in your executive summary to keep you on track, so that you're held accountable to your marketing plan. And finally, I have to say, just have fun and be passionate. There's so many creative ways, once you understand your consumers, to be able to sell your honey. Honey is the most magical product, not only just in taste, but there's just so many wonderful, wonderful attributes to honey. And there's wonderful designs that you can come up with to kind of entice the consumers in your area to purchase your product. I love this design here. I think it's absolutely lovely. Here's another one, kind of when you're opening it, the bees are just kind of on the box. They look like they're flying out, and they actually have little bee confetti that comes out. So these are just some fun ideas. This one kind of gives this honey an artisanal kind of feel by it has that it was harvested on, and then they're hand writing the date on the jar. And this is kind of a unique kind of labeling here, kind of really showcasing this idea of the fluidity of the honey. And it's very simple, kind of with a crest and tilia kind of showing where the honey is coming from. Really beautiful design there as well. Here's one that's a little bit more intricate. You can see that there's actually kind of this cutout design of the honey. And so you really have to think about your consumer. Me, if it's in a giant mason jar and there's a lot of it and it's a good price, I'm going to buy it. I am less kind of wooed by some of this fancy labeling, although I think it's lovely. I just want good honey. So you have to think about who your buyer is, because there's going to be a buyer that's going to want that beautiful, intricate, kind of well thought out design. So that, I know I talked really fast and I said a lot, but we're going to post this, and it's going to be available for people for a long period of time, and I want to thank you for listening. And for those honey producers that are involved in this project, I will be talking with you very soon to walk you through a marketing plan that is specific and designed just for you. My email is on this slide as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And I just want to say, I am not a marketing guru by any means. I am a expert on honeybees and honey. So this is kind of where I pulled some of the marketing plan material from. Here's the URL right on the slide, so you can go there yourself and kind of get more information, because there's a lot of great information out there on how to develop marketing plans. And with that, I will turn it over unless there's any questions.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Delaney. That's a lot of information, but it's very well structured. I have a question coming in here very quickly. The question is, how important is it for people to have a presence in social media? Is there a way in which people can combine some social media efforts in combination to farmers markets or different ways of trying to engage people from the community?
Oh, absolutely. That's a wonderful question. Those things can really work hand in hand, and you can even have kind of what your social media outlet, kind of uh, I'm not sure the correct word, your URL or your contact, or if it's, Instagram, or if it's Facebook, you can have that information for your consumer right at the farmer's market. And then you can put on there just interesting facts about honeybees, about honey production, and also you can sneak in their promotions like, oh, come to the farmer's market today because we're going to be offering a 2-for-1 deal, or the third person to visit and says this word gets a free jar of honey. So there's all sorts of ways that you can link things, and I think that's a really great question because that also ties into understanding your consumer, because in certain areas, say in southern Delaware, it's on the rise, but not everybody is on social media as much as, say, people in more urban areas, and so that might not be as an effective a strategy. But if you're in a more urban area, or in an area around a university or something like that, where there's more younger people who are doing social kind of using social platforms, and that's going to be a great marketing strategy.
Excellent. I think it is striking, and I really liked what you said about trying to get feedback from people directly. And if we go back to look at this loss aversion concept, in which people really kind of like when they see something positive, but they pretty much give up if they see something negative. The willingness to pay was so negative, it probably means that once they see this negative comment, the likelihood of them purchasing something from that particular vendor or that particular brand is almost zero. And so I think that to close today, I think I want to leave people with the book of a marketing a book that I really like, the title, and it says the new realities of marketing in the digital age. And the title of the book says, people who like your products, they will tell 3 friends, but those who had a bad experience, they will tell 3,000. And that's the power of having a good product. So thank you very much for participating. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.